So the next topic of ours is Anglo-Norman or Norman period, is generally known as medieval ages from 1066 up until 1380, or from the start of Chaucerian age or the age of Chaucer. So this period, Norman period, starts with the Norman conquest in 1066. So Normans basically or originally came from Normandy, a state of France. William is generally or throughout the world, William is known as the Conqueror, but in England he was known as William the Bastard too, because he controlled after having defeated the King of England, Harold Godwinson. When William the Conqueror defeated Harold Godwinson in the Battle of Hastings, from then onwards he controlled England with the man and might, uh, with which we would say that he controlled law, he controlled land, he controlled uh, land ownership and everything. So he rusticated all English people or all native people from the higher ranks or higher jobs, and instead of them he brought all Normans from Normandy, and he put them there. So this was the period of flux, the time when much was being changed from the perspective of politics, or from the perspective of religion, or from Anglo-Saxons. They became from masters they became servants. So the Normans were dominant figures or dominant sects at that period of time. So the important things that ever happened in this period were the constructions, or the inceptions of two universities such as Cambridge and Oxford University, that they were made during this period. So right. So in a gist or in a summary, we would say that Normans overnightly became masters and English became servants. So from we'll first discuss from the perspective of grammar, that this is a period where grammar was completely or entirely changed, or so many rules from French language, English language borrowed so many rules from French language, so many vocabulary was inserted into English language. So if especially the letters such as silent letters and different spellings were actually came from French language, such as knowledge, K is silent, and so many other examples that we can take of the silent letters. So they all came from French language. Then word order in English language, word order was much improved at the time of Anglo-Saxons. When we talk about the perspective of any language, word ordered in a way that subject verb agreement, or subject verb object, this word order was properly followed, and that was imitated from French, French language. So standardization of spellings were also there, as we all talked about the uh, the missing letters or missing sounds or the silent sounds, that was much there. So later in 14th century, London dialect came out to be the standard dialect, or received pronunciations were there. So these things were much important. But now we'll move to other material, or the other topic, that is literature. So what was happening in literature? There was literature was not produced in much or huge quantity or humongous quantity, because people were struggling with their freedom, and they were fighting hard uh, against the atrocities or brutalities of Normans or the French rulers. So the important thing that was being written or being celebrated in medieval ages was romance. So there is a huge difference between romanticism and romance. So romanticism is all about poetry, about feelings, emotions, and imagination, and all that. What Wordsworth later on preached in 18th or 19th century. So where he laid emphasis on emotions, feelings, and rustic themes, and simplicity of diction, and all. But romance was being written in Norman period was much different from that romance or romantic spirit. So romance was actually piece of literature, piece of poetry was being written about knights or the warriors or the lives of warriors, such as King Arthur and his round table. And in the round table of King Arthur there used to be 150 knights, and different poets of this age or like this period, medieval ages, they used to write about the adventures and the courage and bravery of these knights. So three apparently, if you look at the medieval ages, there were three main types of stories were being written in romances, were about King Arthur, Charles Magne, and Alexander the Great. So these were the some three important figures were being given space in their works whenever it comes to romance. So romance is what adventurous literature about the warriors or the knights of the medieval period. So apart from that, Robin Hood ballads were very important. Robin Hood ballads. Robin Hood is a literary figure who started writing ballads, which is one of the prominent works of this period also. So this was like some other works. Works from medieval ages or the creativity from medieval ages can be counted on fingers, because it's not in much quantity, like Lemon's Bruce. Layman was a writer. He wrote Bruce, a poem that was also you know uh, can be is worth mentioning. And then Owls and Nightingale is one of the very beautiful dialogue poem that is written by an anonymous poet. Owl and Nightingale is a debate between an owl and a nightingale, and later on, when these both characters, like both birds, go to another bird to solve their quandary or matter. So this is a dialogue poem or debate. So this poem shows that this period was debatable from many perspectives. Nobody actually agreed on anything there. So different ups and downs were there in this period regarding politics, and then religion also. So there is one another work, Encrane Rivley, is a guide poem. It is also anonymous. It's not known much about its authorship. Encrane Rivley is a guide for ladies entering into the religious life. So basically, it was written in Greek, I suppose, and then later on it was converted into English too. So this period has not much about the literature height. Later on in 1340, Age of Chaucer started, and then Age of Chaucer is generally known as an era of transition or the growth of nationalism. English, which was considered as only a dialect, was it was perfected by Chaucer, or it was a dialect that was converted into a language by Chaucer, especially. So we'll discuss the age of Chaucer in, Langland, Gower, John Wycliffe in detail in next